Okay, welcome Visions families and staff to the next session of the curriculum fair for this year. We are going to go into a little TK curriculum highlight. I am joined by my co-presenter for this session, Kristen Migliori, and we will be taking turns sharing some information about curriculum and learning in TK. So let's start out with looking at the agenda. We will start as we do in any good session with a celebration before jumping into what the TK Learning Foundations are. And then we'll talk about where TK is showing up in our curriculum fair menu this week. And we will wrap up with some resources on our homeschool hub and highlighting those and where to find them before ending with gratitude for you joining us today. So let's start with a little bit of celebration. The chat is open, and I invite you to share a word or a phrase in the chat that describes what great TK learning looks like. So go ahead, get those fingers firing in the chat. Interactive, love it. Play-based learning, hands-on, playful, play, exploration. I love it. Yeah, play, love of learning. I think Kristen and I plan on saying every single one of those words you named in the chat today. So we are, I don't think we all could be more on the same page with each other. So I am actually going to go ahead and hand the mic over to start us out to Kristen, who's going to talk a little bit about what the California PTKLFs are. So Kristen, floor is yours.
Thank you. The California PTKLFs were pushed out in July of 2024. So you may not have seen them yet, but they are certainly showing up in your curriculum and on the semester plan. The PTKLFs are detailed developmental milestones that most children will typically develop in high quality responsive early education programs. You need to keep in mind that these are not standards. This is not a checkbox situation. This is more of looking at the developmental milestones and finding out how we can support our students wherever they are, is where they're supposed to be, wherever they are, and move them forward. So if you decide to go into a more detailed exploration of these, I recommend reading the introduction first. I think it's about 13 or 15 pages, and that is going to tell you how the logistics of each core subject is going to be set up. They're all going to be set up the same. And then I would hop into approaches of learning, so you know what type of learner you are working with, and then social emotional development, because as the student is learning, if they don't have self-regulation, it's going to be very difficult at times to teach. And then you can hop into the other subjects and kind of start finding out where your TKer is. Next slide. And here's an example. So this PTKLF is on approaches to learning. And if you open it up and you will go ahead and read the introduction, which is pages 3 through 11, and then you start getting down into the strands. And for approaches to learning, there is only 3 strands. It is motivation to learn, executive functioning, and goal-directed learning. And so here's an example. I just picked an example. It was Foundation 1.1, Curiosity and Interest. And if you look, there's an early section for our early learners, probably at the beginning of the year. We can get some very, very late 3-year-olds in our program. And then the later section is going to be towards the end of the school year when we're working with 4 through 5.5-year-olds. And you can see that the curiosity and interest is the same except for the growth. So in an early example, you can see where it says a child explores a flower by looking at it closely while touching the petals, the leaves, and the stem. And then later, the child is going to look at the same flower, but then maybe compare it with something else. So again, these are just learning progressions, and we just want to use them to see how we can keep supporting our kiddos. Next slide, please. And then this fall, in August of 2025, the P3 learning progressions came out, and I was actually very excited to see these. Um, excuse me. Again, this is very much like the PTKLFs, but you can see this is a continuum, a developmental continuum, not standards. Again, you are not checking off boxes. You are looking to see where your student is. So, for example, I've had families tell me this year, my student will not sit down for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes and do worksheets or concentrate and focus. And if you look, depending if they are in the early learning, 3 to 4.5 year olds, or 4 to 5 year olds, that is developmentally appropriate that they aren't sitting. So that is just something for us to keep in mind so that parents aren't thinking, what's going on? My child's not learning. I'm not doing something right. And then again, this goes all the way through grade 3, which I'm very excited about because your student could be in language and literacy right on target for their grade or age, but maybe in math they're a little bit ahead in some areas, and maybe in science they might need a little bit support. Um, I have been doing presentations. I just started this spring. Down on the left, there is a link for the family presentations, and families can click on that link and go to to see the date, and you will find when that presentation might be, and you can register and then join us for a presentation. After the presentation is over, the slide deck is available to families, and so they can use it for future use. And I think it is your turn,
I'm
Kaylee.
grabbing that mic and taking it back.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to take us a little bit of a turn from PTKLFs and into curriculum, and we'll just share some places where you can see TK curriculum in the curriculum fair this week. So I will start by saying that our Visions core curriculum is K-8 curriculum generally, and for TK, there are multiple kindergarten curriculums that have adapted pacing guides to address the PTKLFs. So students would engage with a kindergarten curriculum in TK, and not all of the activities, but some of them to address those PTKLFs, and then they would re-engage with that curriculum again in kindergarten should they use the same curriculum 2 years in a row. The exception to this on our core curriculum menu is Lincoln Learning, which has a standalone TK curriculum. And this is an integrated curriculum, meaning that all of the core content areas are in one course. So ELA, math, science, and history are addressed in there. And it's important to note that this is a fully digital platform that has print materials, and it requires hands-on engagement. So you'll see some examples in the pictures here. This is a picture of what the curriculum looks like online. So students would be looking at this, but they aren't just clicking into a computer. It says, listen as an adult reads the nursery rhyme. So it requires a human to provide that guidance and instruction. So you'll see the adult would read that and then have this discussion with the students about the questions. Then students interact with a responsive activity with this story. Before then, they are building a glitter bottle. And in that glitter bottle lesson, they are learning how to take control of their emotions. So it's a social emotional learning lesson, but you see that they aren't working with a virtual glitter bottle. They are building one in real life. So important to note that this is a fully digital curriculum that requires a lot of hands-on engagement. And you can learn more about Lincoln Learning during the curriculum fair this week. They have 2 sessions. They're split for ELA and history, and then math and science for K-8, but they know you're coming. I told them we have TK too, and they know that. So you're welcome to come in there and ask that vendor questions if you want to learn more about TK. The next vendor that I'm going to highlight is a new one on our menu. We actually added them a little bit early this year, so you can check them out now. It's Innovamat, and this is a research-based PTKLF aligned math curriculum. It is play-based, similar to Lincoln Learning in that you access the materials digitally. But for InnovaMat, you're accessing the teacher materials digitally. What the students are doing is all in play, conversation, and inquiry-based activities that spark their curiosity. So you can see an example. Students are watching, you can't hear it, but there's a little song that goes with that dancing flower in the rain. And then they're doing all of these math activities to build their fluency and conceptual understanding of math in their early learning. So next to highlight is another newer vendor. This is Language Lizard, and Language Lizard sells bilingual books in over 60 languages. So you'll see some examples here. These are books that are bilingual, meaning that they have two languages within them. So an example here, this is Russian right here. You will see this story in Russian and then just below it in English. And they have a wide variety of languages, both in fiction and nonfiction texts. Worth checking out. They are a vendor that has books for many grade levels, but worth highlighting in our TK. And they are having a session this week as well on the 27th. And I'm realizing that I didn't give you the InnovaMat information, so I'm going to go back and do that now before we head to our next. So that is in the chat for you as well. Next is McGruffy Press, and McGruffy Press has a TK program. Their materials are generally early learning materials designed for at-home learning. They include storybooks, language, and pre-writing resources in the TK program. And they are in the curriculum fair on the 24th at 3:30 p.m. So the registration for that is in the chat. And then we have Parenting EQ. So there's a lot of TK in our curriculum fair this year. Parenting EQ is a social emotional learning lesson and activity subscription that focuses on developing students' social and emotional skills. So worth checking out. Another one that has resources for students TK through 8th grade. But they have some really early development of social emotional skill resources. And they are with us on Friday at 9 a.m. And then last but not least, we have Studies Weekly, who has a TK California standards-based program. And I actually think I have a little flip book for you to show you what this looks like. So you can see what one of their magazines looks like. They provide physical materials as well as digital materials, but you can get an idea of what they look like. They come in the form of a magazine, and they are lesson ready. So you can pick them up and get started with them immediately as they arrive. And they are with us at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Finally, this is not a vendor, but wanted to highlight that we have our TK thematic units available. And this is a Visions created resource. They are standards-based units of learning designed for TK, and they are centered around literature. And they are available on the Homeschool Hub, which is the perfect segue for me to gracefully give the mic back to you, Kristen, so you can talk about the Homeschool Hub and what we have on there for TK.
Thank you, Kaylee. So if you go into the Homeschool Hub, you're going to transition over to grade level resources, and then you will find Transitional Kindergarten right up at the top. And then once you open that up, you will see all the offerings that we have. So on the right of your screen, you will see TK Family Partner Presentations. That is a carousel. So as I am finished with the presentations, I send the link over to Kaylee and she puts those up there. So there are some that are a year old and there's some that are a little bit older than a year. If the information changes, I try and use the same slide deck so that the information changes, but it's still in there. On the left side, you can see my contact information. You can get a hold of me, or families can get a hold of me through email. I have family partner drop-in hours on Wednesdays from 3 to 4, and I'm happy to talk to them for whatever they need. And if you go down a little bit more, you will see the TK Family Partner Presentation flyer that's going to tell families when presentations are coming. You can see the blue means that that is access to the slide deck. The Zoom link is will take you to registration. And then if it is in green, like April 17th, the slide deck has not been created yet, and the Zoom link has not been created yet, but it's coming soon. So if we go back to, there we go. And then under the TK Family Partner Presentations, we have TK only field trips and events. These are specially designed field trips for the TK student and one chaperone only. We have created a more structured, smaller learning experience for some of our families. Some of our TK students, this is their first time experiencing any kind of school or being out with a lot of people. And sometimes it can be very uneasy if a TK student is around 100 people that they don't know. So those are smaller on purpose, but the families have been having a great time. And over to the right, we have our thematic units and some projects that were completed by our amazing CTs. So if you are looking for something to supplement your work, maybe you just kind of need a break from your regular curriculum this week, we're kind of antsy in the house, feel free to choose one of those. On the left side, you will see a link to assessment services if that is something that you think maybe your TK family or you as the TK family might need to check out. And then we also have curriculum. We have the link to the PTKLFs, and then Event Express, which is going to be events for TK through grade 8 for families that want to go to maybe a larger type of field trip or event. And then some additional resources at the bottom.
Yeah, and if you want to learn a little bit more about those, you can join us in the next session where I am going to be taking us on a little tour of them. So that is the end of our presentation. Kristen and I just wanted to say thank you for joining us and learning more about TK. And we hope to see you in some TK curriculum highlights throughout the rest of this week. So thank you so much for joining, and we will see you in the next one.